Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba of LumumbaSpeaks.com. Back once again in conjunction with Bequan Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire and the home of African news and information. We're here to have a great conversation with you all regarding David Banner's pseudo-intellectualism. Of course, we're going to be highlighting his interview with Cam Newton, as we both all know, former NFL MVP, Cam Newton, first overall draft pick, course, college national champion at Auburn. So we're going to really do a deeper dive. Many of you who are aware, before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and donate. You could donate, of course, Venmo, Cash App, and of course, via the Super Chat. And make sure you donate to the show so we could continue to provide you with this African-centered content, right? But many of you who follow my work, I've stated this ad nauseum, I would argue, that our enemies are internal and external. Some people call it intracommunal and intercommunal, right? And so one of the enemies that I believe of Black people that we have to face is the constant stream, flow, and promotion and production of misinformation to the Black community. So when we get into the interview, of course, there will be times where I'm starting and stopping. It may be a little bit hectic. Many of you may be familiar. I did that, of course, with the what's her name? She used to be with Trump, Turning Point USA, Candace Owens, right? When she had her Breakfast Club interview, and we were able to deconstruct her claims and why they were false. And so we're going to seek to do the same here. But once again, like, share, subscribe, donate. You're watching Lumumba Speaks in conjunction with Bequan Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African-centered news and information. But I think this is rather important because what tends to happen is, and I really have pushed back on podcasts. Many of you may be aware why, the situation with Cheyenne Bryant. But we tend to find that these are spaces, these are independent Black spaces, independent Black media spaces. They have the resources and the cachet to bring in actual scholars to address issues pertinent to our community. Instead, what do? They bring on what I would call, some individuals are grifters. They bring on individuals who are celebrities. Brother Dwayne Omowale, many of you are familiar with him. Of course, the resident historian here at Lumumba Speaks and Bequan Network we talk about Shannon Sharp's podcast. A lot of these podcasts, it's nothing more than celebrity gossip, right? When the individuals are talking, you tend to realize they aren't well educated, well spoken, well read, etc. And this is what's being disseminated to the world, let alone to our community, and it's not actually benefiting the community in any way, shape, or form. I would also argue that in some ways it actually is detrimental to the community. And we're going to talk about that a little later, when Malcolm X talked about, if you're not on the right road, there's no way you would get to the proper destination. Or as Baba Kwaku Larry Crow always taught me, if your premise is wrong, right, if the basis of your argument is wrong-headed, as some would say, there's no way you're going to come to an actual liberatory or liberational end. So something to consider there, family. Once again, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and donate. Super Chat, Venmo, Cash App. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com in conjunction, of course, with Bequan Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African-centered news and information. The link is in the description. So if you want to tap in, be part of the conversation, as you all know you can do. I will put the link in the chat momentarily, and I look forward to having that conversation with you all. Definitely look forward to having a conversation. So the link is in the description, and then of course the link will be in the chat momentarily. Definitely looking forward to having a conversation. But I think that this is a major issue, particularly when you have individuals who are positioning themselves, let's be honest, as Black thought leaders, right? As someone who has an actual genuine interest in bettering the community. They come on, they bloviate. And one of the things that we tend to find, particularly with individuals who haven't really been trained how to make a coherent argument, is they tend to kind of dovetail into a myriad of issues, right? Right, that of course does not align with their initial argument or premise. So we're going to see that in the interview. And so I'm actually going to share my screen, and fair use. Need to make sure that I say that because we don't want to get any strikes by YouTube. So fair use. And as you know, he will speak, then of course I will pause, and then we will have a conversation. So so that's what we're going to get into, Mr. K. And I think Mr. K is a great example that you don't have to, and please forgive me, Mr. K, if I'm wrong, but I think you're a great example of someone who's autodidactic, right? You're well read, and as a result, you're able to make a coherent argument about a particular issue or subject matter that you're addressing. You're not all over the place, right? And making claims that typically are nonsensical. And one of the things that we're going to find as well here, and this David Banner does this, and a lot of individuals do this, who I'll call pseudo-intellectuals. They engage in the boogeyman syndrome, right? So they. He's going to say they a lot. He doesn't name they. He doesn't provide any examples to substantiate the claims that he's making. Something to consider. We saw that with 19 Keys, right? But he's going to make some claims regarding they, right, that are just completely averse to facts. But if you aren't well read or actually knowledgeable of that subject that he's speaking of, you might fall for, of course, the banana in the tailpipe. Shout out to Eddie Murphy in his classical film Beverly Hills Cop. So here we go, family.
What's funny, Cam, is that it's rooted to something very serious. About 2.5 years ago, I went through the worst depression I ever went through in my life.
And once again, fair use, fair use, fair use. I would argue right now he's setting the table, right? And he's setting the table in terms of himself being a victim. He's almost, he's embracing victimhood. Something happened in his life that's traumatic. And I argue he's setting that table as a way to not have Cam Newton push back against what I would argue many of the nonsensical, anti-intellectual claims that he's going to make on his show.
And I realized that people treat you exactly how you treat yourself. I had this martyr complex. I felt like I had to save everybody. I had to save the world. What I realized is, can we cuss?
Yeah.
Some motherfuckers need to suffer. That's how God corrects you, through your suffering. And sometimes we try to save people who it's not their time to be saved. They need to be in their hole.
So once again, right off the bat, I would argue he's making claims that are just absolutely nonsensical, right? Someone suffering. We can associate suffering with the Black plight in America, the African plight in the world, or even here, just simply in the diaspora. And to make the claim that somehow God is involved in the suffering when we're really talking about what racial discrimination, right? I watched a documentary the other night on how corrupt the criminal justice system is. And many of us are well aware of how corrupt the criminal justice system is. But for him to say, well, some people need to suffer, and that's just absolutely nonsense out the gate. But these are the type of things you have to be cognizant of, because typically in our community, how we're socialized, if someone mentions God, we're socialized not to question what they're saying, even if it's absolute nonsense.
And so I realized that I had to love me. My therapist told me, he said, David, you always talking about black people, black people, black people. He said, why don't you treat yourself? Treat you the way you want yourself to be treated. So people think that it's ego. It's not ego, man. Like, I really, really love myself. And I honestly think I am the second sexiest motherfucker that ever walked this earth. I got to give it up to Jesus first. I let him have that. You know, I don't have that carpenter swag. But after that,
that's you, right? Yeah, that's you.
Making sure.
Yeah.
But no, man, it's bro, I say shit sometimes, bro. I make myself laugh.
But are you serious?
No, I'm dead serious. Oh, I'm not playing.
So there ain't no need to laugh if you serious.
No, it's to come together. But what I'm watching us tear at each other like slaves. Bro, when it comes to commentary and
once again, I would argue this is another example. Let's see, Mr. K. Lumumba, I must admit, I would love to see you team up with an Africana studies professor who's a Pan-Africanist called Darius Spearman. He has serious scholarly receipts. I'm going to write his name down. I'm going to reach out to him and see if there's something that we could collaborate on. So here's one of the issues, right? Off the bat, he's appealing to emotions. Absolutely. Appealing to emotions. He's talking about slavery. He's going to start talking about commentating. And I'm just going to kind of lay the groundwork here. When we watch television and you have commentators on television, these individuals are journalists, sports journalists. Their responsibility is to be what? Objective. If someone's out there not playing well and they say, oh, they make up an excuse, they probably would lose their job because the expectations that they're objective, right? But he's going to bypass all of that and make a claim that people are simply attacking Cam Newton, but he provides, once again, no examples to substantiate that.
Especially football, I only know one or two people who's in front of cameras that can say anything to you about football, bro. A lot of people are catty and they take shots at you because they can't be you. They don't have that love and respect for self that you do. They don't have the history that you do. It's getting to the point, bro, what people are talking about everything but music. It's the song jamming, it's the beat jamming. Don't nobody care about that no more. I have to go to ESPN 19 to hear about the fucking game. What happened on the game? Not how much somebody's getting paid, not how who is somebody having sex with. And bro.
So here's the thing. One, he's all over the place. Two, he doesn't provide any examples. And three, I'm a sports connoisseur. Cam Newton hasn't played football in years. He's a commentator on ESPN. So as you said, sister, he's appealing to emotion. He's making claims that, one, I would argue are adverse to facts. Two, provide some examples to substantiate what you're saying. But once again, we tend to find with these individuals who self-promote themselves as being Black intellectuals, right? They tend to always put themselves in a position as if they're playing the victim. I'm being victimized. I'm being attacked. And because of that, you shouldn't challenge what I'm saying, even though you should challenge everything that someone said. Anyone who has a background in higher education, has been to college or anything, is what you make a claim, you got to provide receipts. You must be able to substantiate the claims that you're making. So something to, of course, consider. Okay, African elements, very good. I'm going to actually check that out at the end of this live.
Before I came here, when I said I was going to say this to you, Arsenio Hall is an example of somebody who did it right. He didn't take the cuts in the corners, because the more that we try to find ways to bait and click people, the more I think that we lose our soul. Bro, nobody has the self-determination. Most people didn't go through what you went through in college. I studied you, bro. You recreated yourself after all that bullshit, bro, and fought your way back. You put a whole university on your back.
Well, so one, he's playing the role. He's typecasting Cam Newton as a victim. Cam Newton was a victim. He had a full scholarship at the University of Florida. He sat behind Tim Tebow for a year, and he was dismissed from the university for committing a crime and stealing the laptop from someone. That's not BS. He engaged in criminal activity. He had to leave the institution, go to a junior college where he performed very well. I believe he was a junior college All-American. They won a national championship as a junior college, and then he went to Auburn. So the issues that Cam Newton faced was self-inflicted. He was getting in his own way. Let's be honest here. But once again, that conversation doesn't come up because of the pseudo-intellectualism. If you're actually serious about Black empowerment, you're going to hold Black people accountable. He overcame that misstep in what he was able to be successful and have a successful collegiate and, of course, NFL career where he was named MVP. But to say that this was some BS, as if there were individuals conspiring to do him harm, is absolute nonsense. But this is what happens when you're in community or conversation with individuals who have a knack, I would argue, for being intellectually disingenuous.
Who had never had that kind of light on them before. You did that, bro. So at this point in your life, you don't have to chase nothing. Your biggest competition is you. Because ain't none of them motherfuckers, they saw when them kids tried you, how them bodies started flying.
They turned, man, they ain't got nothing to wear, into sheer confidence. Their personal style.
So we're going to skip ahead a little bit.
Inside of you. Like a lot of times, bro, like when I started moving to the bigger pants, I wasn't comfortable with it. So I would literally go to coffee shops and start with new fashion and just walk around with it.
So we're going to skip ahead.
Exactly.
See what I'm saying? A lot of people were born, somewhat raised in different places, but they rep Atlanta.
Watch this, and you're going to love this story. That is one of the reasons why I have the love that I have for Atlanta.
Skip ahead.
Front of us, the propaganda that we see in schools and in Black History Months and the I Have a Dream and the monuments and how great Martin Luther King was and what he stood for. You're saying that it's a lie?
What I am saying is, well, here go all them endorsements, Regina. Regina said, no, bro, like, integration was the worst thing that ever happened to black people. Being,
So I'm gonna stop it right there. And the link is in the chat, family. It's way easier to be a victim and point the finger at they. Absolutely. So I'm gonna stop it right there. He says integration is the worst thing that ever happened to black people. And I discussed this when I had my interview with Brother Raheem Shabazz of Wise the Dome TV. And Brother Raheem, we had an interview where I was deconstructing, of course. This was after I deconstructed 19 Keys, of course, Breakfast Club interview. One of the things that we found was we have individuals who really are romanticizing Jim Crow segregation. None of us lived under Jim Crow. Thank the ancestors, right? During Jim Crow, we went to dilapidated schools, right? We had outdated, sometimes no textbooks whatsoever. There was oftentimes a lack of municipal services. So in black communities, the roads weren't paved. You may or may not have indoor plumbing, or you had to go to an outhouse. Um, One of the things that the civil rights movement, which really was known as the freedom rights movement, the media called it the civil rights movement, was they revamped, of course, the criminal justice system to where there were no longer all white juries. Right. These are some of the things that actually took place as a result of the success of the freedom rights movement, but the media called it the civil rights movement. Right. So, and one of the best books to read about this is Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries. He's a professor of African American history at House State University. I took his class titled Teaching the Civil Rights Movement when I was in my doctoral program at House State University. And they talk about this concept of the master narrative and actually misrepresenting what the civil rights movement or the freedom rights movement was actually about, right? He's doing the same thing here, right? But once again, we find these so-called pseudo-intellectual thought leaders romanticizing Jim Crow, romanticizing black people having no rights whatsoever. We're talking about the nadir, of course, of race relations. We're citing the great Pan-African historian Rayford Logan, right, in his seminal text, The Betrayal of the Negro, from Rutherford B. Hayes to Woodrow Wilson, right? This is what happens when individuals are pseudo-intellectuals. So that they misrepresent history.
enslaved is just losing a war. Like, once we integrated, we thwarted the opportunity to teach our own children. We don't have no options on what we teach black kids in public schools. Think about this, y'all. In a lot of public schools, in a lot of colleges, they tell black men that they can't wear locks. Your natural hair.
So once again, he's making a claim, but he can't substantiate it. I did some research on this. There are only two examples that I found uh, where black men were told they couldn't wear their natural hair. One was at Hampton University, which is a HBCU's MBA program, right? Many of us know that a lot of HBCUs tend to have an integrationist mindset. So they're trying to tell you, you need to prepare you for the real world. And so part of that is cutting your hair. The second was a Pensacola Christian college, right? It was some type of, independent, but it was a religious school. Um, but once again, he's making claims, but he isn't providing examples to substantiate them. Yes, and I'm familiar with Carol Anderson. Matter of fact, I've read her book, The Second, where it talks about the historical origins of the Second Amendment. Now, of course, I'm an advocate of the Second Amendment, but she talks about in that book how the origins of the Second Amendment were based on what seeking to prevent slave revolts, right? So just a little historical background. Shout out to Mr. K there on highlighting Dr. Carol Anderson. Her brilliant work, if I remember correctly, she's a professor of, I think, African American history at Emory University.
Dog, do you see that they say they can do anything to meet that they want to, put anything they want to without telling you the truth about it? Think.
So once again, this is an example of him making an incoherent argument. He's going from being a Jim Crow apologist to discussing the lack of independent education in public schools to what now he's talking about nutrition. So we went from Jim Crow to education to what the Federal Drug and Food Administration. Mr. Sandman, I appreciate you. This is what happens when you're having conversations with individuals who are pseudo-intellectual. So let's see here, Mr. Sandman, I appreciate the super chat. How can we take Cam Newton seriously wearing tight biker shorts and his medium polo shirt? That brother took too many hits to the head playing football. Happy Pan African Saturday. I appreciate that. Happy Pan African Saturday to you. You know, we're not going to attack the person. We're going to attack the argument. Definitely appreciate the super chat. Once again, family, if you're watching, if you can, of course, donate to the show. Super chat, Venmo, and of course, Cash App. But these are some of the things. But you know, Cam Newton has always had a rather eclectic or eccentric fashion style. That was even the case when he was in the NFL.
Think about right now in America, what black people have influence over what happens to their children in general. What they feed them, what they see on TV, what they hear on the radio, any of those things. So by integrating,
Well, I disagree, right? All parents have control over what their children eat, what they watch on television, and music they listen to. It's called being a parent, right? I can say that because I am a parent, and I controlled what my children watched on television, the music they listened to, and the food that they ate. So once again, it's extremely frustrating, right? Because he's coming off as but Mr. K stated, I think you stated he was, let me see if I can find your comment. Um, Fallacious and opinionated, but not articulately studious and educated, right? Right. So, major issue here. Eyes off the prize, the United Nations and the African American Struggle for Human Rights, 1944 to 1955 by Carol Anderson is a must-read book on the real deal backstory on the civil rights movement. Very good. I'm gonna write that down. I appreciate that, brother.
even saying that you want civil rights. Take the word, the operative part of the word is civil, right? You're saying that I just want you to treat me civilly, right? In anything that you do in life, 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna make 100, right? Even if you're great. So if you fall short of civil, that means they treat a dog better than they treat you. I don't want civil rights. I want you to treat me like the God that I am. And so what I'm saying is that they take pieces of a person. Like they couldn't stop Malcolm X, so what they made him was an X on a hat. The same thing that they did to Jesus.
All right, so we're gonna pause it right there. Civil rights is not about being civil with a person. Civil rights was the advocacy for equal rights in society. So he's completely wrong and off base there. Some of the other baddies says David Banner has the liberal white woman's view on Black history. I presume WW, you're saying white woman. David Banner most likely never read a book and interpreted anything himself. He is just repeating what he heard. That's what makes him money. He can't rap anymore. Overstood. So once again, that's a complete misinterpretation of what civil rights actually was. It was advocacy and fight for equal rights in society. The second issue, he says they made Malcolm X simply a symbol on a hat. Completely false, right? But they once again represents the boogeyman, the anti-Black boogeyman. What we find, if you do a deeper dive, is that Spike Lee, filmmaker, HBCU graduate, went to Morehouse, 40 Acres and a Mule films. Spike Lee was the one who popularized Malcolm X, the X on the hat. And he did this as a way to drum support for the film that he made about Malcolm X, right? And one of the individuals he got to wear the hat for doing the 92-93 season was Michael Jeffrey Jordan, right? So once again, he's making a claim that is averse to facts. There was no mysterious day, no mysterious boogeyman behind putting the X on the hat, right? Spike Lee did this as a way to garner support in, what's the term that I want to use? Anticipation for his upcoming full-length feature film on the civil rights and human rights in Pan-Africanist leader. So once again, he's making the claim that is adverse to facts, but unfortunately, Cam Newton either is unwilling or unable to push back against the ahistorical claims that Cam Newton is making.
In Christmas, They took Christ out of Christmas and put an X. These are the mind games that we don't see. And to be honest with you, as our friendship grows, these are types of things that keep me up at night, Cam, because I see it. And it's so clear.
So you would have wanted segregation to stay segregated.
Well, I would have wanted black people to build their own shit. I would have wanted black people to praise their own God.
Okay.
I would want black people to teach their own kids. I'm not saying that we can't.
So once again, if you're familiar with Black history, Dr. Bakari, get free Blanchard on, or he is Blanchard. So once again, one of the issues we find here is Black people did build their own communities, and we faced a number of. David Banner is an HBCU graduate, and he's pursued a master's degree before starting his music career. What HBCU did he go to? HBCU did he go to, and what was his major? If you could look that up for us, Mr. Sandman, that'd be great. Appreciate it. I mean, and I hate to keep stopping, but I don't know if we're going to be able to get through this entire video, right? This interview, I mean, he just continues to make claims. Black people did do that, and we know that there were a number of issues that we faced. If we're looking at white vigilantism, right? If we're looking at the bombing of Black communities, we talk about, of course, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Gap Band made a song, "You Dropped the Bomb on Me, Baby." We could look at, of course, what took place in Rosewood, what took place in Black Wall Street, of course, in Durham, North Carolina, and throughout the country, right? We also find examples of course, redlining, right, as examples to try to undermine Black people's ability to build wealth. So the claims that he's making are simply reverse the facts. The second issue, he talks about he wants Black people to worship their own God, right? But yet at the same time, he starts off the interview pedestalizing Jesus. It just doesn't make any sense. He's all over the place. But this is, once again, this is what you find from individuals who are pseudo-intellectuals. They tend to put themselves in spaces where Southern University, Louisiana, okay, very good, where they aren't going to be challenged intellectually.
Can't be together, but would you respect somebody who you allowed to stay in your house, whether you forced them to stay there or not? And what, they've been staying there for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, 100 years? It's time for us to get our own. If we have our own, then we don't have to beg for anything. Like,
or the ability to create your own. Because I think that's a lot of suppression too that's not being mentioned, especially going back to slavery. Mm-hmm. It's not to say that we couldn't have our own. We didn't have the rights to have our own. You know what I'm saying?
But what I'm saying is that even within that, man, like, I give you a great example. I told you, bro, if I had any power in the spaces that I wanted, it's coming. But like, bro, I would make you the Black Superman, bro. Like, period, dog. I don't want there to ever be a period where our children don't think that they're gods or that they're superheroes. Like, think about this. This is gonna mess y'all head up. A real superhero is a representation of a god. Wonder Woman is a god. Superman is a god. I love Black Panther. I don't want to be no cat. I want to be a fucking god.
So once again, he's making claims that are opposed to facts, right? Superman wasn't considered a god. He was considered the last son of Krypton, right? Be honest here. But we're gonna go a little deeper, and we're gonna see how problematic the argument he's making is.
And what they're telling us that we can't be gods when when the word hero comes from Heru, a black man. So the word comes from a black man, and you can't be a real hero. And then watch this, it's gonna fuck y'all head up. Where does Superman get his power from? Come on, y'all in here. From the sun. White people are allergic to what? The sun. There's no way Superman could be white. A white scientist said that it's not possible. They run from the sun. Superman is supposed to be darker than the darkest night ever. These are the things that I notice, and it be fucking my head up, dog. I can't sleep. And I'd be like, don't nobody else see it? And then when I say it.
So here's the issue. And we're going to break this down. And I'm probably going to speed it up like 1.5 speed. Superman is an alien, right? It's a comic book. It's not real. He's an alien. Right? It's not real. Secondly, white people aren't allergic to the sun. They simply lack melanin. They're melanin deficient, but they still have melanin, right? Any dermatologist would tell you this. but he's trying to make a articulate or a coherent argument about something that really is nonsensical. It's a comic book in which this man is an alien. Secondly, he says he's supposed to be black. Superman was created by two white Jewish brothers from Cleveland. What are you talking about? But he talks about this concept of black gods. Well, if you want to have a conversation about black gods, then let's talk about African religions and the gods of those religions. If you want to have a real conversation about black gods, don't take some crap from a comic book that was created by white people and say this person's supposed to be black. Just absolute nonsense to me.
Negroes say that I'm crazy. When I said something about that, I can't say it because last time I said they threw me off TV. Like, and look at what they're saying about what happened to people after they took that. Blood clots. They can't have children. They die. I missed a movie because of that. But they acted like I was crazy when I said something about it. Bro, I'll just tell you this. From this point in my life, and this is going to surprise you, I really want to be around good human beings. Everything that I do in my life will always be for black people. But I realize that it is important for me to do for me, and those who see it can come along, those who don't have to suffer. And they will suffer until they see if my way is the right way, it's the way to go. But Cam, it's the best time in history. Why everybody's scared and why so many wild things is happening in the world. If we had our shit together, it wouldn't take but a couple of us to put our money together, bro. We can go buy and do anything. We can go buy up Ghana. We can go any of these places, buy land here. We can go back to Mississippi.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Point blank period. No sugarcoat, nothing. Are you a racist?
Am I racist? No. You have to have power in order to be a racist. I may be a bigot. I mean, I might be that if you want to call me something. I'm not. But I'm just saying, what people won't tell you about the word racist is in order for you to be a racist, I can't stop white people from shopping at no grocery store channel.
So this is the one time where he's on point. Yes, black people don't have the power to be racist. To be racist, you have to have power plus prejudice. Let's see here. Summer says, Summer, none other baddie. Why is it that when black people talk about race, racism, slavery, black history, you can't question them even though they are blatantly lying? Well, you can, right? I don't think there's ever been an argument that you can't question them. What happens is individuals who are making these claims typically make claims in spaces where people aren't going to challenge them. I think that's what typically happens.
Stop from going to no club or no school. I can't be racist. I don't have no fucking power. You can't be black and be racist if you know the true root of the word. I study every day of my life. There's no way black people can be racist. Now, if you want to look at the word racist in the way that most people think of it, which I don't, Marcus Garvey said, and this blew my head off. He said he doesn't have a problem with white people's racism. He has a problem with black people's lack of racism. If we thought of ourselves and put ourselves first the way that they do, then we would be just fine. But we put everybody before we put ourselves in anything.
Of course, Garvey was talking about not actually being racist. That was Garvey speaking about the need for black people to be ethnocentric.
Do you have any relationships, partnerships, alignment of other cultures outside of
Fuck yeah. Dude, let me tell you something. When I hire, I look for black people first. But the real truth is I need the most qualified people. The company is black because I'm black. I'm able to hire who and what I want to by the success of the company. I don't really give a fuck who works.
Let me move ahead a little bit.
We have to be successful.
How would you want black history to be taught if you could control it?
If I could control it, I would just want people to tell the truth. There's not many things, bro, that we didn't create. But I'm learning more and more every day. I just bumped into the Black Rock group Death from Detroit. They were the ones that started grunge music. Matter of fact, by the time they figured out how much people loved them, they were a reggae group, and they started a whole genre of music and didn't know it. Bro, you gotta think about it. Just about anything that's connected to work, black people had to have created it, because them motherfuckers wasn't working, they had us. We created the cotton gin. So what they did, and what I can say that I'm learning from white people that has changed my life, we are so talented that we spend more time doing the talent than creating systems. I'll give you a great example. The reason why the NBA always plays with the game, because white boys really can't be active in playing the actual game anymore. They just don't physically have the talent. So they play with our lives. They play with us. They put rules and set rules and say, okay, let's try a new ball. Let's see if we can get the 4-point shot. That's how they play with us. They play with our lives on a whole nother level, right? That's what we have to start doing, setting up systems. People know my criticism on most conventional religions, but I realize that if I convince someone that they need to change the way that they think, there's not a system for them to land into. You know, where are they going to go if they don't go in the white people's system? That's the reason why we give up and just go back to them, because we don't have nowhere to go. Bro, imagine this. As smart as you are and how intellectual you are, the kind of money that you have, and I'm not criticizing this, I'm just saying I noticed it myself. We spend so much time in the talent. Imagine you being in a place and just implementing shit. All you got to do is watch the system, pay for it, sign your name, and keep it moving. Look at Oprah Winfrey. For a very long time, Oprah had to be on every fucking cover of a magazine or a sale. Had to be in every movie that came out of her company. You know what I'm saying? It's not freedom. And I started realizing that, like, damn, I got a system of producers back to Mississippi. And I was so proud because Ryan Coogler said something, man, and he's one of the dudes I respect the most, bro. Even the way that he speaks. You know, he's unapologetic. The way that he loves his wife, bro, that builds his wife. Just the embodiment. And he hasn't missed yet. People are not noticing that. He has not fucking...
That's hard to do.
Yeah, it's impossible to do.
That's hard to do.
Impossible to do.
Because even, and I'm sorry, and this is just my rotten tomatoes, rotten pears, or just movie critique. All right, what's my man, Get Out? Jordan Peele. A lot of his like Get Out was an epic proportion. A couple of ones after that was just like, okay, it's not. The Us was a little deep too, because it was like, okay, he's back. And then it was just okay, where we at? It's getting too heavy. But Fruitville Station, you had the Black Panther. You don't want to be it. That's you. But then you drop the Sinners, and this is what I even heard from. I heard Kugler. I heard Tyler Perry. With the budget that you have allocated to create, you maximize what you had. That's what they do to us.
What roll out on the screen? All of these things, bro, that he is bringing to the game. I promise you, bro.
You know, I swear on everything I love. I just seen that. Keep going. You see what I'm saying? But tell the story about Paul McCartney.
Okay, well, Michael, you know, they would talk Paul McCartney, if I'm correct, and I'm paraphrasing, was teaching Mike, you know, about publishing the business. And Mike was like, well, damn, since it's just business, I want to buy the Beatles publishing.
But the Beatles publishing was also attached to so many different other black.
And watch this. As soon as Michael Jackson bought that publishing, it ain't just business no more. It ain't just a friendship now. One thing that I've never said this in any other place, bro, and I give this to you because of where we are trying to allow our relationship to grow, bro, is that most white people won't admit it, but they still look at us as if we are something to be owned. Like, we're supposed to be happy with the scraps. We're supposed to be happy just to be in the game. We're supposed to be happy. I remember one time, and I'm not going to speak about the company because I'm still a working man who needs certain opportunities, but I remember turning down an opportunity that most black men would have said yes to without even reading the contract. I just have always wanted to. I think that's been my lesson with God. Every time I've ever tried to take the corporate route, every time I've tried to take the easy route, besides the very first time I got my deal and I needed that foundation, is not went right for me. Like, we are going to have to get used to owning ourselves, not just for us, but think about it, man. My cousin was in the group that one of the greatest horn samples of all time, hip hop, the most sampled horn sample of all time. I can't even sample my family's music, bro, because we don't own anything, bro. So what I'm saying is yes, it is business until we become bigger than business, until we start trying to buy networks. And I was gonna say this person's name, but it's not even worth going into that. It was all cool. You can do any movie.
But I would agree with him there. That's something Marcus Garvey taught us, was the importance of controlling an industry, and we tend to find, well, we know that one of the major aspects of course, white hegemony is, of course, economic control, right? So I would give him kudos there, right? I think he's absolutely 100% on point.
Want to do? Ryan Coogler is a great example of that. They were criticizing this man because he negotiated a deal that's really never been heard of, black or white. It's cool as long as you're feeding us movies and you send us, but you want to own the movie again? Oh, that's a problem. So what I'll say, and this is not anything that I'm trying to debate. It's just something that I want to lay on you because you want to make it to that level. I see it in you. When you start getting power, you already started it. Dude, you shooting in your shit, bro. As soon as you start owning and not wanting to sell everything, the business is going to change. And it's going to stop being about business and about how much power you're able to accrue. The fact that you have your son up here, bro, giving him opportunity. People were talking about nepotism when it comes to some sports player. Them white boys, daddy get him something every fucking day of their damn life. Let me get a child. I'm gonna give my son everything that he wants. It's not gonna be easy for him. He's gonna have to learn. He's gonna have to earn it. But you are supposed, again, racism. Marcus Garvey said, I have no problem with white people's racism. I have a problem with black people's lack of racism. You're supposed to do that for your son. Ice Cube was the most honest. They asked him, was it nepotism when it comes to his son? Ice Cube said, hell fucking yeah. It better be.
But it's important. You're drinking coffee. Yeah. Charlie, did you go get coffee this morning? Just in general. My point. It's small things. Because either going into the NFL, I never had the conventional corporate kind of, relationship where I had to start in the bottom.
That shit was hard, though.
Yeah, I understand that. So for him, he's not making it to the league. So if he can remember days where now his younger brother or a person, when he starts to have children and say, man, I did the same things, dog. It's no skipping the steps. I believe in nepotism. We all believe in nepotism. But understand, I ain't giving you nothing. I had to strip his car from him. He think, oh, damn, it's like, no, son, I just want you to earn something. He got his own car now. You feel me?
Mind if I tell him something?
Go ahead.
They say in the Bible, if you spare a rod, you put in a child to the grave. If something happens to your father, or let's say America goes to war, and you don't know how to do nothing, what if something happens to him? Anything can happen in America. We see this stuff change every day. When you don't have the skill, when you haven't gone through the process for yourself, you don't know how to get it. If you go through the coffee, if you go through making the runs, if you go through running the cameras, in music, there's not one thing in music that I can't do. I even went and wrapped my own CDs. When we were making CDs, I went in the sweatshop and burned my own shit. Ain't nothing. It may not be the same quality, but from the beginning to the end, I can do anything that comes to music. Nobody can. You are a slave to what you don't know. So at whatever place your dad skips a step, that's actually hurting you. You need to be able to do it all, or someone will take it from you. Literally take it from you. So that's the biggest lesson in the world, bro. For somebody to be able to see that you need to earn it. The other thing is that I used to wonder why my dad was so mean to me, bro. My dad was the worst as far as being hard on me. But now that I'm older, my father was the biggest blessing to me in the world because the world is not playing with you. The world is not going to help you. The world is trying to hurt you, if anything, especially when they know what you come from. People are jealous of what you come from, bro. You got to go through every step, bro. The other thing that it's something that I want to talk to young black men about in probably about 8 more years, I'm not quite to that point yet, is the importance of your genetics. Bro, when you look at your father, you may not show those traits now, but you have it in you. And you'll be able to pass that along. And you need to think about that when you decide what woman you want to be with. You have to know that if something happens to you, that what your father passed down to you will be protected. And bro, that means a whole lot. And we don't talk to each other. That's the reason why I bring up some of the topics that I bring up, the way that people will be able to do the same thing again. That's why history is so important. The problem with black history is not the slavery aspect of it, but it's the fact that we're so much more. Anthony Browder is the reason why I'm conscious. He wrote a book called From the Broad Files. He has this map. No lie, bro. It reaches from this wall to that wall. And it's the history of Africans, right? White people, their whole history is only about this much of the map. I'm talking about since they've been on the earth, period. So if you go from, let's say, for argument's sake, from that wall to right here is white people, but we have existed for this amount of time. So what about the pyramids? Why we never hear about that? Why we never hear about Mansa Musa? What about our history before we ever came in contact with them? It's not the slavery aspect, because that's an important aspect, so it'll never happen again. But why don't we ever? That's my only criticism. Well, not my own criticism, but my major criticism of HBCUs is that if we are going, and I'm probably the biggest proponent for HBCUs, but I believe HBCU, part of their responsibility is to teach you how to be African, how to be Moorish, all the things that we don't know. That's what we're supposed to go and get. Because like you said, the question that you asked, the initial question that you asked, a lot of parents, and y'all in here, be honest with you, who's not from the South, our parents sent us to HBCUs to teach us how to be black. Because they moved us into these places thinking that the financial part was going to save us, but the history, like sending kids to a white college without purpose. When you send Asian kids to these different colleges, they know they got to come back and do something for the community. They know their responsibilities of what they have to do. We really just want to get the bag. So that if we have these HBCUs and we have this illustrious history, we just have to teach our children about it. The other thing is community building. One of the things that I see that happen to black people, and this actually almost brings tears to my eyes. I look at black people like I look at the iPhone. Do y'all remember, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm showing my age. I remember when a video used to come on MTV or BET. The hood, I'm talking about everybody was in the house. New video come on, shit. Even though we from the South, if we got a Mobb Deep CD, it wasn't one of them in the South store. One of us got it and everybody was in the crib. It was a community. We are communal people. We are tribal people. Now everybody is I. If you ask most black people, do they want to be a millionaire? I do this all the time. Everybody will raise their hand, right? I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. One thing I'm so sick of this shit. Black people keywords, I want to be a billionaire for fucking what? And for you to be a billionaire, 9 times out of 10, you got to be parasitic in some kind of way. You just do. To be able to accrue that kind of money that fast. Not saying that I can't do it. But what I am saying is that when you ask a person, why do you want to be a millionaire? Why do you want to be a billionaire? In most cases, people in our culture will say, I want to take care of I want to take care of my hood, my family, my kids. It's never like, I want to be a billionaire so I can buy us some land. I can buy us some water. I told you, man, if I'm able to get my studio, who did I say I want to see a superhero be? Who did I say? You! I said, bro, I would love to make you be like a black Superman. I want this for everybody else. I want him, if he wants to do something, and you want him to have that experience, we send him over to Uncle Dale. Oh, they don't know Dale. Excuse me. Send him over to Uncle Dale. Yeah. That's the real power. Because a lot of times, when it's you two, he's still looking at Dad. If you send him over to Uncle Dale, and I put him through the system, then that's a different experience. And now, he heard what you said, but he's living it through his uncle, and he's protected, right?
Yes. The thing that's so astonishing now is the amount of people, no matter where you're from, it still makes me feel a certain type of way. And I have it here on my notes, just not a lot of people have even seen a cotton field. And if you see a cotton field, it's on acres. And to think about, like, folks was picking cotton, and we know how hot it can get in the Texases, Mississippis, Louisianas, the Alabamas, the Tennessees, the Georgias. It's like, bro, y'all was out there all day on those acres. That's just something that's extremely wild. I want to change the...
But real quick, since you said, I want to add something to it. I went to the Delta once, and they told me something, man, and it punched me in the stomach because I never thought about it. You know, in the Delta, the land is flat. So, like, let's say if you were an escaped slave and you got away, on that flat land, you can see for almost 30 to 40 miles. So you see that black skin and you see somebody running, that's why a lot of times they waited till the nighttime. And it wasn't no lights how, I used to do this all the time because I always stay out in the country in most cases. I cut the lights off just to see. That shit's scary as fuck, dog. That shit's scary as fuck.
Well, for real.
Them real country times where we be from, cut the lights off if you want to. Matter of fact, it was a clip on Instagram with this girl was riding a bike and she threw a finger sign at dude. And it was at night. And he cut off his head like, she ended up being in these towns, these people fall in love with me. It's the reason why I love them.
Okay, so we're gonna stop it right there, family, and then we're gonna, of course, open the conversation up. So the link's in the description. I'm gonna put the link in the chat once again. If you want to tap in and be part of the conversation, you're more than welcome to do so. We definitely want to hear from you all. Once again, be part of the conversation. You do not have to cam up. Once again, you do not have to cam up. You can, of course, use a pseudonym to protect your identity. But definitely want to hear from you all. I think he ended well, right? Of course, he made some claims that I think I would actually agree with. But I think he started off, of course, showing his lack of actual education and intellectual acumen. But tap in, family. The link is in the description. Links in the chat. You're watching, of course, LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe you can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction, of course, with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African-centered news and information. And just you want to go back to the Marcus Garvey comment. He was referencing, Marcus Garvey was speaking to the need for Black people to be ethnocentric, right? He wasn't speaking, Marcus Garvey wasn't speaking to Black people being racist. He was speaking to the need for Black people to be ethnocentric, as many of us who are well-read know. Unfortunately, we are socialized to be integrationists. We are socialized to not think in terms of what is in our best interest. And there are a number of course, public institutions that play a role in forming that type of thinking. But I think that is something important for us to consider, that Garvey was speaking to the need for ethnocentrism in our community, not actually Black racism. So once again, family, the link is in the description, link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. Love to hear from you all. Your thoughts on, of course, his David Banner's interview with Cam Newton, his use of the boogeyman, and of course, some of the, ahistorical claims that he made throughout his interview. Definitely want to hear from you all. I think I did a good job of deconstructing why it's problematic, right, and why we have to have individuals who are actual scholars to actually tap in and be part of these conversations so that real education can take place rather than what I'll argue is a pseudo education where there's some good points, but much of it is filled with misinformation. I think it does more harm, of course, than good. One thing I would agree with, of course, was the push when he talked about the business is not business when it comes to Black ownership. We do know that Marcus Garvey, one of the things that Marcus Garvey taught us as, of course, Black economic nationalists was the importance of controlling industry. We know Garvey sought to do that with the Black Star Line, which was created to rival the White Star Line. Many people may be unaware, but the White Star Line was a British, of course, line of course, steamships or ocean liners. And the flagship, of course, ocean liner for the White Star Line was, of course, the ill-fated Titanic steamliner. So tap in, family. Link is in the description. Link is in the chat. Definitely want to hear from you all regarding this conversation. The link is in the description. Link is in the chat. Where we are deconstructing the pseudo-intellectualism of David Banner. Of course, we tend to find a lot of individuals here in the social media spaces have a long history of romanticizing Jim Crow and, as we all know, being Jim Crow apologists, as Mr. K would say. Extremely problematic. One, they haven't lived under Jim Crow. And then number two, they haven't even, I would argue, done a deeper dive in terms of why there was a freedom rights movement. Of course, we know that the media called it a civil rights movement, but the goal isn't simply for someone to be civil towards you. The advocate, the fight was for civil rights, for equal rights. And he says, I want to be treated like a God, but that's something that's individualistic, right? We have to treat people based on, well, in any country, the focus or the goal, the way things should go is that a person is treated per the law, not based on how you individually feel about yourself. So once again, he's just kind of nonsensical rambling, right? That we find here. And this is something that, unfortunately, we find is extremely common with individuals who are pseudo-intellectuals who really seek to position themselves as thought leaders. I'm even going to try to reach out to David Banner and have him on my platform. Will he reach out? Will he respond? Who knows? But I'm going to try to do that, and we'll see what happens. As many of you are aware, whenever I do these type of reaction videos, I always will reach out to the person and say, hey, let's come on my platform, have a conversation. Typically a conversation where you're going to be challenged intellectually about some of the, of course, ahistorical claims that you've made. And as we know, I've yet to have any takers, right? But we will see what we could do there. So once again, family, you could tap in. The link's in the description, link in the chat is in the chat. Once again, you do not have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym to be part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from you all. And so my thoughts, want to know from you all, what are your thoughts on, of course, David Banner's interview? Put a 1 in the chat if you had previously saw the interview. Put a 2 in the chat if you had not seen the interview. Definitely want to hear from you all regarding your thoughts on David Banner's interview with the former NFL MVP and, of course, college football national champion, Cam Newton, right? Definitely want to hear from you all. So links in the description, links in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. Hopefully, Brother LMA from VA can pull up and be part of the combo as well. Mr. K, I know you always provide a wealth of knowledge in the chat, but would love for you at some point, of course, to tap in off camera, but be part of the live show, and we can hear from you. That will be greatly appreciated. So once again, family, I'm not going to play anymore because that was the gist of it, right? But we talked about this concept of Black gods. Well, let's talk about African religions, right? I would even push you and say, can you name a Black god? Can you name some African religions, right? If you want to have a conversation, let's not discuss what are David Banner's credentials. He has a bachelor's degree. I think Mr. Sandman was able to look up that he has a bachelor's degree in business from Southern University in Louisiana. I believe Southern University, if I remember correctly, I believe it's in maybe even New Orleans. But those are his credentials. So he does have a background, of course, in Black studies or even history, but of course in business, which makes sense. You know, he went into the music industry and he's been successful. But this is the major issue. And a snapshot, I would love to ask you, because you're over in jolly old London in the UK. Do you all find this issue even in the UK, where individuals are going on platforms, really spewing misinformation, celebrities, etc., rather than actual scholars being interviewed, questioned, etc.? So that's a question for you, because I know you're in London, but definitely love to hear from you. But once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com in conjunction with Beacon Network, the Pan African Social Media Extraordinaire in the home of African-centered news and information. And this is a major issue because what this provides is our people with a false sense of consciousness, right? I could call vividly when I was an undergrad, I was reading a book and it talked about some of the harms that hip hop, of course, has created for the community. Of course, we've gone over this before, some of the harms of hip hop. But one of the things that they talked about was because some artists, right, have socially or politically conscious lyrics, it could lead one who listens to the music to believe that they're actually socially or politically conscious when the reality is they're not. We saw this. Um, we saw this with I think Lord Jamar, Brand Nubian, right? We saw him making claims that they had songs back in the early 90s where they talked about the Middle Passage in the African Holocaust. But yet we find him today being an African Holocaust denier, right? We find him now saying that he's not Black. He's actually an indigenous American, what we like to call pretendian. So we tend to find this really a false sense of consciousness. And I would even argue that what we found, particularly in terms of hip hop in the early 90s, was people were promoting Afrocentrism because it was economically lucrative or expedient to do so, right? Not because this is something they actually advocated or believed in. One of the great examples, I always have this debate with people, and we can even open up the debate here, was about Tupac Shakur. I would argue that people say he was brilliant, he was a very intelligent man. I argue, no, he wasn't, because if he was, he would not have been easily manipulated by Suge Knight. If he was as brilliant and educated and socially politically conscious as said he would not have been engaged in a gang banging. There's an actual video on YouTube of him calling into a radio station in LA where and somebody he's asked by of course the VJ or DJ disc jockey, what's your relationship like with Dre? He says, I haven't seen Dre in months. And he says, I'm out here actually in these streets gang banging. And then we know his death was precipitated by him actually engaging in a assault of a gang banger at a Las Vegas hotel. So I would argue anyone who's socially politically conscious does not engage in violence against Black people, does not engage in criminality, particularly harm against other Black people. But that's just my position. Mr. Sandman, how you doing on this Pan-African Saturday?
Hey, happy Pan African Saturday, Dr. Lumumba. I'm doing fine.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I respect Tupac Shakur. I mean, as a lyricist, I think, East Coast rap is a little bit better. I think I'm more of a fan of like a Biggie Smalls whenever they had that East Coast, West Coast rap beef or whatever back in the day. But I respect Tupac Shakur, because he comes from that what's that, Black Panther family,
Yes.
His mother and his father, I believe, and even his aunts were like crusaders in the Black Panther movement, and a lot of Black consciousness. So I assume some of their Black consciousness rubbed off on him, and I guess he tried to take whatever they were doing and make it corporate or make it wrap it into the whole thug life slash,
Well, no, I mean you can't wrap that in. That's an oxymoron.
Mhm.
You can't claim to be a Black revolutionary, but at the same time be promoting criminal activity in Black fratricide.
Right.
The two don't go together.
hmm he's not and I don't think he was ever really a real thug to begin with anyway. I mean, he went
I
to
would
like
agree as
private.
well.
Yeah, he was born in New York City and he went to like a private art school
In Baltimore.
in Baltimore with Jada Pickett. So, you know, I think it was like a prestigious art school before he traveled to the West Coast to live with his mother in uh in the San Francisco, Oakland area. So yeah, I think that was just like an all of an act. But yeah, and then real thugs, you know what I'm saying? Like Suge Knight, took that, that business idea and tried to make it real for the public.
Yeah,
So I think they
yeah.
were
And
all
Suge
faking
was
it.
an actual gang member, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you watch that Michael Jordan, not Michael Jordan, but Michael Jackson documentary that just recently came out, they talk about how, you know, he was working with the Bloods and the Crips as well, but more on in a music type setting as opposed
Mm.
to being associated with any gang members. So I guess like they had like a huge influence on the West Coast back in them days, But
So
yeah,
really quickly, I want to address Snapshot. You talked about the NOI. I'm familiar with the Speaker's Corner. I've seen some videos where members of the nation, they get up there and of course, they seek to process highs, and of course, typically they're kind of bloviating. And one of the things I saw was that there were individuals who actually would challenge them on some of the claims that are made, even if it was historically, religiously, etc. So I think that may be what you're speaking to when you talk about the lack of influence that they have over Black Brits in 2026. Because as you know, when I did a 3-part series on the Nation of Islam titled Inside the Nation of Islam, Cult or Community, we tend to find that the overwhelming majority of the claims that they're making, the things that they teach in the organization, are ahistorical and adverse to facts. So just something to be considered of there. When it see here, you say when it comes to Tupac, the camera stopped rolling, but that guy still thought he was Bishop. Okay, got you 100%. Mr. Sandman, go right ahead.
yeah, but yeah, in talking about David Banner, in his interview with Cam Newton on that show, it seems like that's just another ploy, um, similar to what that comedian did on the Shannon Sharp television show or the Shannon Sharp interview show.
Hmm.
What's his name? The short guy who likes to do a lot of a pimp named Slickback
Okay, you're
guy.
talking about the guy from my hometown. Golly,
Oh,
what is
he's
his
from
name?
Ohio too.
Yeah, Cat Williams. Yeah, he's from Dayton.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Cat
basically,
Williams.
yeah, I think it's just one of those publicity ploys where you get on these interview channels on these black interview shows, talk shows, and say the most outlandish stuff for views. So
Yeah,
that's what it looks like he's doing. I assume he has like some type of, you know, tour coming up or music venture that he's probably trying to move towards coming up pretty soon. So the more clicks and views you can get by saying the silliest stuff that you can possibly say, that seems to be the way the entertainment business is going nowadays. This is what the public, and especially the youth, seems to be drawn to is these outlandish, clownish type interviews that we're seeing on
right.
a regular basis, where
Yeah.
you just say the most outlandish stuff and then get your clicks and views up, and then you know,
Well,
once you get your clicks and views up.
you said Mike David be trying to take Umar's spot, right? He says, Pons, play your position because you never be king. Even Umar want the crown. How that sound, poor thing, right? Yeah, you may have a point there. But go. I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Mr. Sandman.
Yeah, just yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Just can he take Dr. Umar's spot? David Banner. I don't think so. David Banner isn't as he can't put that doctor in front of his name and use that to push his agenda. Or he isn't known for talking as much Pan African talk as
Umar
Dr.
Johnson.
Umar is known for. But David Banner does have a history of being so-called pro black. So he's been accused of being like anti-white in the past. So by some of the statements that he's made, and for whatever reason they haven't canceled him due to like some of his anti-white comments in the past. So that seems to be his market employee for whatever reason, and his work for him so far. I mean, he seems to be successful, a business person in the entertainment business. It's at least successful enough to find his way on the Cam Newton talk show.
Absolutely. But and this is what we find these talk shows. Like as I said before, they bring on celebrities. They don't bring anyone on really noteworthy that could speak to issues that are pertinent to the black community. You have individuals like Cam Newton simply bloviating, right? He makes claims that are specious in nature, and no one pushes back, right? So of course I have a concern with that. My hope and desire is that, of course, moving forward, we will be able to do is I'm going to reach out to David Banner this evening, reach out to him, see if people come on the platform. Uh, I would, of course, I would argue that more than likely he won't, because he's going to be challenged intellectually. Brother Bequilon mentioned this. I think Brother LMA mentioned this as well. And when they realize, okay, who you are and what you're about and your level of scholarship, they're not in a space where they actually want to have that conversation. Um, but I'm going to try. But I think it's important, incumbent upon me, of course, in Beacon Network, when we're providing African-centered information, that we're pushing back, of course, against this misinformation that, of course, we find is omnipresent intra and intercommunally.
Yeah, it's interesting to what's had happened to, the black community over the generations, in the 60s and the civil rights movement, and even moving into the 70s. We went from these serious, academic, scholars who, and black civil right activists who had, a litany of serious talking points whenever they, got on television and in the media. And now we have all of these, like you said, pseudo intellectuals. They get on these media platforms and just enact in these clownish manners, just for clicks and views. So I don't know what happened to us. Like, why did we get so far away from academia and the intellectual, civil discussions um, to cosplaying all of this, this thug and crazy, you know, images that they were portraying nowadays. And it's kind of crazy because they say like a guy like a Kanye West, if you talk to him in a personal setting, a lot of um, a lot of people will claim that if you ever talk to Kanye West on a personal setting, that he's a brilliant person, highly intellectual. But whenever he gets on the camera, he's going to say the most ridiculous, outlandish stuff just for clicks and views, and it and it seems to be working for him. He's a billionaire, you know. I don't
Right.
know. It just seems like this is this is the way of the future when it comes to entertainment. Just put
Overstood.
on
And
a
I would argue a snapshot. I don't think the issue is Pan Africanists don't get an invite. I argue that serious scholars don't get an invite. I personally would argue that I don't think this has anything to do with Pan Africanism. And I had this conversation with a sister who was a bit older than me. I actually look up to her. She's a great mentor to me. And she said, Brother Picard, that's not the issue, not about you being a Pan Africanist. It's about the fact that you are a serious scholar. That's why they don't want you on the platform, right? So something to consider, and you state what I mean by NOI having no influence is if you ask a random black Brit under 25 what the NOI is, I doubt any of them could tell you. Overstood. Got you.
yep.
Okay. Snapshot, and I know it's probably late. It's probably 10, probably almost 10:30 in London. But do you want to tap in, be part of the show? Because as you know, you do not have to cam up. So I let you answer in the chat. Mr. Sandman, go right ahead.
Yeah, and I just recently took my ancestry test,
Okay.
the patriarchal test to find out my roots in Africa. So that's interesting, especially since on my father's side, my lineage is me and my son. Well, I think we're the last with the Y chromosome. So we're gonna find out a lot about the history, dating back, thousands of years, coming through my father's bloodline. So that's exciting, find out what tribe I might be coming from, And they say that even when you take the test, that there's a chance that due to, being African American and your family going through um the African slave trade, that Y chromosome could trace back to a white person. But I highly doubt that, you know. No, on my father's side of the family is probably like 99% black or more. So I think
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure my Y chromosome is going to trace back to a black man on the continent.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I definitely appreciate everyone tapping in. Final thoughts from anyone in the chat, or of course from Mr. Sandman before we close out. And just once again, family, I'm still working on putting together the merch for the channel, so I should have that taken care of hopefully by this weekend.
Yeah, that sounds dope, man. Can't wait to cop some of that merch, man.
I
But you
appreciate it.
getting some like some African medallions and stuff like that, bring it back to like the
Um, so,
90s.
so no, we're doing a lot. Actually, we got some um, Haitian Revolution bomber jackets, a lot of things that we're looking to put together. So we're taking some time. We want to make sure that, of course, it's quality, but when we're ready, we're going to make sure that we launch it.
Yeah, drop that stuff, man. That's I'm definitely gonna cop some of that.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Well, to family, until next time, y'all know what to do. Always bet on black. Peace. Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on black. Peace.